This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, so in this class we'll discuss about types of flows. So we have already know what is a flow and how do we create the flows, right? So if I just open any of the flow, we can able to see this flow is mainly responsible for creating the work object ID. So this is what we have seen. And if I just open any other flow using this case type also, each and every flow what we are trying to do, that has to be either used as a main flow or it has to be called from some other flows. So if you are opening this particular case type flows, we can able to see one py start case as the main flow, and rest all these are the flows that are being called within this. So it will be having one sub process shape within that, and it will be calling each and everything, right? If I run this particular case type flow, what it will be doing, it will be running this py start case, and it will be executing this flow first, this flow second, third, fourth, likewise. So it has to loop for all the flows. That is what we are saying, meaning there should be one main flow which is responsible for creating the work object IDs. And if I run the flow either in this way or this case type, whatever we are seeing will be just having the flow actions loaded, and we can able to submit it. So are we finding any option of we coming back? So if I just run this, I can able to see one main flow created with the work object ID. So one work object ID created if I run the flow in this way, or if I run the case as well, case type as well, work object ID will be created. Okay, and we will be having something like an submit option, save, cancel. So these are all the things what we are getting it from the OOTB section. Okay, if I just enter any details here, if I just click on submit button, if the user wants to make any changes in the screen number one, so it is not possible here. Clear, right? So we cannot able to come back. So we have only option of saving it till here or submitting it. So if I just click on cancel, work object will be cancelled. If at all, if user want a user information needs to be updated, what it has to be done? So I cannot able to do it here. Okay. So in that cases where if you want to make the user to make modifications in the previous screens, we have to go for another type of flow. So that is called as a screen flow. So we'll be having two types of flows. So that is process flow and screen flow. So whatever the thing we are trying to see all the time till now is called as a process flow. Okay, so this is a process flow. This one, everything will be considered as a process flow. What we are seeing so far, and there will be cases where we have to make use of the screen flow. So the purpose of the screen flow here is we can able to either go front or back also. If I just have 10 screens, if I'm the screen number one, if I want to directly jump to screen number 10, it is possible. If I want to jump to screen number 2 back from 10, it is also possible. Okay, so based on the business scenarios, we have to make use of the screen flow, or we can able to go use of the process flow. Suppose if any requirement, if I want to have 5 screens one by one filled automatically. So if there is any specific order defined for that, if you want to make user to enter screen number 3 after screen number 2 only, then you have to go with this process types. Okay, and if you want to directly jump to screen number 10 or from screen number 9, if you want to come back to screen number 2 or 1, anything, so if you want to go in any order, then we can able to go for this screen flow. Clear, right? So there will be two types of flow, that is process flow and screen flow, and there will be minor differences between these two. So the creation of the screen flow is also very similar to creation of the process flow. So creation wise both are same. So while creating any of the flow, we will be just marking one thing. So if we just mark that particular change, particular thing, it will be considered as a screen flow automatically. If we are ignoring that particular thing, it will be considered as a process flow. So let me create one process screen flow. So if I just want to create screen flow, as I told you, creation will be same as it is. I'm creating something like sample. Okay, if I just click on create and open, so normal flow will be created. So that will be considered as a process flow. So that's what we are seeing. And if we just click on this view advanced configuration, if you mark this one, standard template for screen flows, if you mark this, then automatically this flow will be considered as a screen flow. Okay, so it will be automatically closed. There will be some issue in the personal edition. You have to open it again. There will be many simple flows again. So I'm opening this. So this is the flow what I have created just now. Okay, so you don't find any difference between process flow and similar flow in the design wise, look wise. Okay, we can able to see everything same, right? So this is the screen flow. As I told you, the main purpose of the flow is to create the work object ID. We can able to see one work object ID created. Okay, so in order to create the work object ID in the process flow, what we are trying to do, we'll be going to the process tab and we'll be marking this. Okay, but in the screen flow, we cannot able to make any modifications to this checkbox. Meaning, screen flows are not responsible for creating the work object IDs. No work object ID. Here we can able to create work object ID. Work object ID is possible. Here, screen flows are not meant for creating the work object IDs. So if any of the flow is not meant for creating the work object ID, the purpose of this flow is to call this flow into another flow. So that is the thing, right? So here we can able to see. So only PY start case will be having work object ID creation option. So rest you open any of the flow, you will not be having this work object ID creation thing. So this will be disabled, meaning this should be considered as a subflow. Subflow meaning a flow which is called into another flow. So this will be considered as a subflow for this flow. This will be considered as a subflow. Okay, so this all will be considered as a subflows. Subflows meaning which is to be called into another flow, and those flows are not meant for creating the work object IDs. The same thing we are trying to observe here. So whatever the flow I'm trying to create now is a screen flow, and the screen flow is also not given option to create any of the work object ID, meaning screen flow is also one of the subflow, and this has to be called only into another flow. So another flow meaning I cannot able to call this into another screen flow, right? So I can able to call it, but even that screen flow will not be responsible for creating the work object ID. Okay, ultimately all the screen flows are to be called into main flow called process. So process is the flow where we can able to create the work object ID. For sure, we have to run the flow to create the work object ID only, no? So all the screen flows what we're trying to create, those are not meant for directly executing. So those are to be executed only from the process flows. So the difference between screen flow and process flow as of now here is we can able to have work object ID created with this, and there will not be any work object ID created with the screen flow. Clear, right? So that is one major important difference. So this is the screen flow, and here if I want to add multiple things, so let me make few modifications here. So let me delete this. I'm trying to include 3 assignment shapes. Okay, and in order to include any of the flow action, what we will be doing, we will be just double clicking on that. We'll be just double clicking on the outward connector of the assignment. So in the process tab. But here, in order to include the section, so assignment purpose is to load the flow action, and flow action is to load the section. And the flow action, what we'll be doing, will be loading in the outward connector of the assignment shape usually. Now, if I just double click here in the outward connector, are we seeing anything? Meaning we cannot able to link any of the flow action in the outward connector. So I'm just talking specific to screen flow now. So screen flow, if I want to include any of the flow action into the assignment shape, that is not possible in the outward connector. But where can we connect this? So this has to be connected on the assignment directly. If I double click here, there will be something called as a flow action. Okay. So if I just erase this and click on down arrow, I should be getting all the flow actions applicable. So did you find the difference between process and screen here? So process flow, for the process flow, we have to call flow action on connector. And here, flow action on assignment shape. So this connector is just a dummy. We cannot able to give anything. Only the name can be given to the connector. That's it. Okay. So I'm trying to include some flow actions here. So all the flow actions are to be given only in the assignment shape. And if I double click here, so this is assignment shape where I'm trying to call one of the flow action. If I double click here, what if I just want to give any of the routing? Okay, here in the process flow, where did we give the routing? Routing we have given on the double clicking of this particular assignment shape. In the process tab, double click on the assignment shape. There we can able to select either current operator or the reporting manager, work list or work basket, anything. But here, if I want to have this particular assignment to be worked by one single operator, are we having anything like routing? So we'll not have it here. Okay, we'll not have anything like in routing. Okay, and if I just want to have one perform harness called, we can able to call harness across each and every assignment shape, that is perform by default. And are we finding anything like a perform harness or any harness being called here? That is not called. So if I just save it and if I just call this particular screen flow from any of the process flow, and if I run that process flow, I will be having this screen flow executed, and I will be having customer detail section loaded because of this, and the next section and the next section will be loaded. So how it will be loading all this without having the perform harness? So by default, if I run the flow, perform harness will be executed. Start shape will be executed first, perform harness will be executed, and within this perform harness, it will be loading the OOTB section, and within that section, flow action and the corresponding buttons will be loaded. But here, I cannot able to see any of the perform harness loaded. We can able to see I cannot able to select any of the harness, but still we can able to get the output properly. Meaning this harness and the routing is being called in some other place. So that will be in the start shape. So this is important. So in the start shape, we can able to have something like an harness called, and there will be something like in routing. Okay. We have harness and routing on start shape. But here we'll be having on the assignment level itself directly. Okay. So you understood now? So the difference between screen flow and process flow here is this is not responsible for creating the work object ID, and we'll be having flow action called from the assignment shape, not on the connector. Okay, and we can able to have this harness and the routing called on the start shape. So meaning if I just define this routing, this is routing, right? If I just define this routing on the start shape, uh, meaning only one operator who is responsible, who is given for this particular routing, has to be worked on all the assignment shapes. So this entire flow has to be given with one operator specifically. I cannot able to have this assignment sheet to be worked by operator 1, this is 2, this is 3. That is not possible. Individual assignments routing is not possible within the screen flow. So screen flow has to be worked, complete screen flow has to be worked by only one person. So that is the concept here. Okay. So if I just open any of the work object ID and start entering screen number 1 details, and I have to go to screen number 10 and I have to enter, I can able to enter remaining details. So if I just enter screen number 1 and 2, it should not be the case where it has to be given to the next operator for entering screen number 2, 3 or rest of the things. So wherever we are using for the screen flows, all the assignments within the screen flow has to be worked by only one operator. So that is the reason they will be having the routing concept included in the start shape directly. Okay. So no other operator can, once he's getting started, no other operator can able to have the same workflow with the same work object ID routed. So that is one of the important thing. And we can able to have this flow action on the connector. For the process tab, we can able to have this flow action called on the connector. We know for one particular flow action, one particular assignment shape, we can able to have multiple outward connectors, right? We can able to have multiple outward connectors. So within multiple outward connectors, I can able to have different flow actions. But that is not possible here in case of screen flows. In screen flows, I cannot able to go with multiple flow actions. So this has to be called only on the assignment shape. That is the another important difference. Okay. And here we can able to have the harness also called. So we can able to use many of the OOTB harness. This is one thing. So if I just want to have it like a tree grid, we can able to go there. Okay. And next important thing here is commit. Okay. So there will be commit operation at the end of each and every assignment shapes. So if in the process tab, if I have 10 different assignment shapes, if I just enter screen number 1 details and click on submit, automatically data has to be stored into clipboard because of OOTB commit. Okay, so that is the responsibility of any assignment shape. And even here also, if I just enter the details of the screen number one, assignment number one, and click on submit, it will be going to the next screen. So by this time, we will be having all the details stored into the database also. So behavior wise, there is no difference as of now. But if you want to make it something like a difference here, we can able to have this checkbox. Save on the last step, meaning what it will be doing. So at the end of this particular flow shape, sorry, at the end of this particular screen flow, so if I just have 10 screens, if you want to store all the details onto this database only after completing the 10th screen, then you can able to go this option. So this option will not be available for process flows. This will be available only for the screen flows. Okay. So this will be mainly used in terms of bank transactions. So only, sorry, in the online shoppings usually. So if you just enter the necessary product and the quantity, and if you just provide the billing address, shipping address, and your payment details. Okay, so this will be considered as an each and every screen. In the last screen, if the payment is successful only, meaning so this save will be happening only on the last step. If the payment is successful only, you can able to have one order created completely, meaning all these details will be stored into the database. So in this kind of scenarios, we can able to go with this approach. Okay. So this option you will not be having for the process tab. Sorry, process flow. Clear, right? So let me save this. So you will not be having any option of creating the work object ID. So you'll not be having anything here. This will be disabled. And in order to run this flow, we have to call this into another process flow. That is the only option. Okay. So if I just want to make modifications to this and want to call this screen flow from a process flow, what I have to do? I have to go for a sub-process shape. Okay. So sub-process is a shape where we can able to call one flow into another flow. So when we're working with previous start case, we have seen one blue color start shape. Sorry, sub-process shape. Within this, we can able to call another flow. And if I want to run the screen flow from another flow, I have to make use of this sub-process shape only. So let me make few modifications and make use of the screen flow here. So here, so this is one of the flow where we will be making use of the process only, right? So as soon as I run the case, what it will be doing, it will be executing this particular stage one, and it will be executing this flow. In this flow, it will be executing this one and this one. And now I want to make few modifications here, and I want to make all the personal details like personal details, nominee details, everything. I want to make use of the screen flow. So with the screen flow, the advantage here is we can able to have back option as well as the front option. Okay. So I'm trying to make few modifications to the existing flow, and I want to call the created screen flow here. So if I want to call the screen flow, I have to make use of the sub process shape. Okay. So just giving this. Okay. So this is the sub process shape, and within the sub process we can able to call another flow, right? So double click on this to call any other flow. So it will be asking us to select the flow type first. So you want to call either process flow or the screen flow. So I want to call one screen flow here. If you want to go with process, you can able to go there. So I'm trying to go with the screen flow. So this is the screen flow. Submit it. Okay, you can able to see it here. So now run it. Hmm. Sometimes it is behaving odd. Sometimes we'll be getting this issue. I don't know why are we getting this also. So, okay, so you both try this once after process is same till here. If we just run this, we will be having one flow executed and we'll be having all the three steps here. So this is the customer details screen, this is the nominee screen, this is the address screen, say, let us say, and we will be getting one screen loaded initially with this one customer details section. Then after below that we will be having one tab here. Okay, so just like our breadcrumb we'll be having. So when we're running the case, we'll be seeing breadcrumb, right? So based on the stages. So similarly, we'll be having three different assignment shapes there. So if we just click on the third, it will be directed. That's it. Okay, so that you try. So we'll be having this issue observed very rare. I don't know the root cause also. You should not be getting it. So if you're getting it, let me know. You should not be getting it. Okay, clear, right? So this is all about the process and the screen flow, differences between process and screen flow. Okay, any doubts on this topic?
No, Chandra.
You try, you should be getting it. You just executing it only, no? You should be getting it, no issues at all. So now we'll discuss something about property optimization. So if I just run any of the flow, what we can able to see as part of the OOTB committing at the end of each and every assignment shape, as well as at the as well as the commit at the end of the transaction, we can able to see data automatically stored in the flow, sorry, in the database. Okay, so if I just open any of the instance from the database, what we can able to see, we can able to see all the necessary information as it is in the database, but only the work object data, it will not be hidden. So work object data will be stored completely in blob format, and that too in PZPV stream. Okay, so there will be one column called PZPV stream, and their data will be stored into the blob. So all the work object details will be stored into PZPV stream column only. We cannot able to decode the data. Only PRPC can able to do that. If at all, if I want to decode it, even then it is possible. So decoding meaning optimizing, optimizing meaning exposing. So exposing of the blob data into user readable format. So this technique we call it as an optimization or the property exposing. So there will be cases where we have to expose the properties. So in our previous class, when we are working with external databases, what we have seen, we'll be making use of any of the data from the external databases. And similarly, if our database wants to be accessed by any other application, then it should be this approach should be followed. If I just want to make this particular data to be accessed by any other application, or if I just want to access the data for my usage also, I can able to do that. Okay. So in that case, what we have to do, we have to make the property optimization. Suppose in the PZPV stream, I will be having all the data related to first, what let us say work object one. So CHG is my work object ID, and it will be having data related to first name as sample, last name, or, mobile as 1234. So let us say, so within this work object ID in the blob, I'll be having this data. So as a developer, I know this. Why? Because we have entered this value. Okay, if at all it has to be exposed or the optimized for the third party usage, it will not be readable, it will not be accessed by them. So if we just give our database credentials or the connections, everything, if they're trying to get the data from here, what they will be doing, they'll be just writing one query like select star from PC underscore work class, where so from the CHG1, let us say, where PYID is equal to CHG1. Then what they will be getting, they will be getting all the necessary information from the properties like takes, create, start date, breaks, create operator. So these all things they can able to get, but they will not be getting this data. So they will be getting this data, what is there in the PZPV stream as it is. Like they will be receiving the blob only. So they cannot able to get any of the information from the blob. So in that case, what we have to do is we have to optimize those. After we optimize it, what PRPC will be doing? PRPC will be creating these properties as an extra columns. As I told you, for the table, property should be the column headings. Okay, so first name is the property, mobile is the property. So this should be considered as one of the heading of this table, and this should be considered as one of the table. So, but for the security purpose, all this data will be stored into blob. Now, if I want to optimize any of the property like first name, okay, then we have to optimize it. So optimize or expose. Then PRPC, what it does, it will be creating one separate column to the existing table. So one second, let me show you. So if this is my table. So this is the work table. And here we'll be having something like PYID. And here we'll be having PZPV string. So if I just click on submit button in the UI, automatically data will be stored here in the PYID. And here it will be stored completely in the blob. So within this blob only we'll be having all the properties like first name, last name, mobile number, nominee, first number, all these details will be stored in the corresponding PZPV stream column of the CHG1. Okay. And in the next record like CHG2, it will be having second work object data. But now my requirement here is whatever the data that has been entered as part of CHG1 or CHG2 or CHG3, any of the work object IDs, if you want to have the first name properties or the last name, all this data, if you want to get it, we have to optimize it. So if I just want to optimize it, what PRPC will be doing? PRPC will be creating one new column here. It will be creating one new column as in first name here. Okay. So in order to do the optimization, what we have to do is we have to go to that property. Second, let me log off. So open any of the property. So let us open this one. We have created many work object IDs here. No? So if you want to open this particular property, so the first name is the property which you want to expose. What you have to do, you have to right click and there will be one option called optimize for reporting. So there will be one option. If we just click on this, it will be opening one wizard. Okay, so we just click on next, automatically one new column has to be created at the end of this particular page. So at the end here, it has to create one new column. So the new column here should be like first name. So when you create the new work object ID, so the first name will give something like in sample. Okay, so data will be as it is stored into the blob. So this is what it is doing as of now. Now the first name property has been optimized. So what PRPC has to do, as said, when we are optimizing it, PRPC has to create one specific column to the attached table. So it has to attach the specific column to this table. For the work table, what are all the properties we are trying to optimize, those are to be created as a new columns. And here we can able to see the user readable format sample. Okay, if at all, if you want to optimize another property like last name, we can able to have one more column included to this table. So one extra columns will be included for this table all the time. Okay, so there is no option of optimizing all the properties at a time. So we have to optimize this individual properties. It might be either 1 or 100. You have to do it manually only. So whenever you're trying to optimize it, it will be creating one wizard, and based on that, it will be creating one separate column to that particular table. So if we run that wizard, I mean, if we're just trying to optimize it, what PRPC is trying to do, PRPC is trying to run some queries to alter this table. So there will be something for altering this table, and it will be inserting one new column, and it will be updating the first name column also. I mean, the first name value also. So it will be updating the first name property also. Okay, so from the blob, it will be identifying the first name property and it will be decoding itself and it will be pasting it here in the column property. Okay, so that is the concept of report, I mean optimizing. If at all we're trying to optimize another property like last name, then as I told you, it has to be done manually only, and one more thing like last name will be included here. So one more column will be included here. So here we'll be having something like a last name. So if we are trying to create new work object ID now, what PRPC has to do, there will not be change in the existing behavior. So CHG2 record will be inserted, data will be as it is stored into the blob. Since it is given with two of the properties as optimized, then from the blob it has to pull out the first name property and it has to put it here, and it has to pull out the last name property also, it has to put it here. Okay, so this will be very easy for the normal developer or the third party application users also to pull this first name, last name, all this necessary information. Okay, so this is the concept of optimizing. Suppose if I run the work object ID now, okay, And there are cases where we have to store multiple values within one page list. So we have created one table layout, and there we have added something like an adding multiple dependent values. Okay, under the first name property we have created one page list, and we from the first name property we can able to add multiple dependents, right? If you remember, so meaning one page list is trying to have multiple properties, so it will be having multiple pages, and each and every page for one property we can able to have multiple values. So let me tell you quickly if you don't remember. So we have added something for dependents, right? So there we have given something like a page list. So I have given something like dependent page list, and within this we have included something like first name as the heading, last name as the heading. Okay, and here we can able to add sample 1, sample 2, sample 3. So one user can able to go with multiple dependents also, no? So that option we are giving. So if we just click on submit button as part of one work object ID, he can able to enter n number of values by just clicking on plus. Okay, one new record will be inserted and it can able to be stored under this page list. So how can we call this particular value? Dependent page list, dependent page list of 1 dot first name is this one. Dependent page list of 2 dot first name will be this one. Dependent page list of 3 dot first name will be this one. So meaning this particular page list is having 3 different pages, and each and every page is having 3 different properties. Clear, right? Suppose if I just want to optimize the first name, I mean the dependent list first name properties, what I can able to do? So if I just optimize this property, first name is one of the property, it is holding 3 different values at one place. So under this page list, it is holding sample 1 in the first page, sample 2, I mean first name is holding sample 1 in the page 1, sample 2 in the page 2, sample 3 in the page 3. This property is holding 3 different values. If at all, if I want to optimize this dependent first list here, if I just want to have something like a dependent first name, dependent last name, dependent first name, this one. If I want to hold all these 3 values, is it possible for me? If I just optimize this first name property, I cannot able to hold 3 different values in one value, as in one value. So ultimately one property should be holded with only one value. So in PRPC we can able to manage. Why? Because so here we are giving something like a page list. So this particular page list of first name will be given this one. This page list of 2 dot first name will be this one. Of 3 dot first name will be this one. But if at all, if I want to optimize this, it will be creating one new property like in first name. So which we are trying to consider itself for the dependents. So what value it has to store? So it has to store either sample 1, sample 2 or sample 3 only, no? So only one property has to be holded by a property at a time. One value has to be holded by property at once. But here we are trying to have 3 different values for one property within one work object ID. So in that case, this technique what we are trying to go for an optimization of a property is not applicable. Okay. So in that case, what we have to do, we have to go for optimization of the whole page list. So in that case, what PRPC will be doing is PRPC will be creating one separate table dedicated to this page list or page group or page. So whatever the technique we are seeing earlier, like optimizing a single property, is applicable only for a single value properties. If at all, if we want to optimize the properties which are in the page list or page group, we have to go for an separate table creation. Okay, so PRPC will be creating one separate table for that. So if we are trying to optimize this property, what it is doing, so it is trying to create or include one new column to the existing table. But if at all, if we are trying to optimize the property from any of the page list, so this is the page list. If we are trying to optimize this property, what PRPC will be doing, PRPC will be automatically creating one separate table for that. Okay, it will be creating one separate table. Why? Because it cannot able to accommodate all these property values, all these values within one property under one heading, right? So in that case, if we're trying to optimize any of the property from the page list or page group, it will be creating one separate table. So let me show you that. Suppose this is the separate table what PRPC is trying to create. Suppose if CHG1 is having three records, I mean three dependent details. So how it will be creating? It will be creating like 1, 2, 3, and here it will be having the values like sample 1, sample 2, sample 3. Okay, so this is for the first name, let us say. And if at all if you want to have the mobile number also for these values, here if you're trying to include mobile number also, so it will be holding something like this one. So this will not be the work object ID, so this will be the index. Okay, so it will be creating one separate table for this page list. So since it cannot able to accommodate all the values here, okay, it cannot able to accommodate all the values on one property. If you're trying to optimize any of the property from that particular page list or page group, PRPC will be automatically in the background creating one table. Okay, so here if you're trying to insert any of the new record, so or if you're trying to create the new work object ID, what it will be doing, it will be storing it in the work table first. It will be holding the value in the PYID, and it will be storing all the necessary details, the first name detail or the dependent details in the block as it is. Okay, so there since we have given optimization for one property, it will be retrieving the data from there and it will be putting it here. And it here itself it has to store something related to dependent page list also, so dependents list also. So whenever it is encountering anything like a dependents list which is optimized, what it has to do, it has to create the same kind of instance in another table. So there will be one new table created as discussed, and here if the particular page list has having three records, so I mean three pages, three separate records will be created. So the number of pages in the page list will be equal to the number of records in the table. Okay, so three different records will be created with the same work object ID, and this will be something like an indexing. So px results of 1 will be considered as this one, px results of 2 will be this one, px results of 3 will be this one. Okay, and here we'll be having the first name, last name, or the necessary details. So if you're trying to optimize first name property and the mobile number property, we'll be having this. So within this page list, if you're trying to have another property also like mail ID, and if you're trying to optimize it, what PRPC has to do, as I told you, if you're trying to optimize any of the property from the existing page list, it has to create the new table. But in this case, new table is already existing. It will be including one new column for this. Okay. So one separate table will be created for each and every page list here, page list or page group. If at all, if I'm trying to have another page list, so another page list might be something related to nominee, let us say. So nominee 1, nominee 2, nominee 3. So if you want to show or expose those properties also, what you have to do, you have to optimize any of the property from there by just right clicking and optimize for reporting. If you just click on this, PRPC will be creating one separate table for that. So this particular table is for one of the page list in this case, and there will be one separate table created, that's for the nominee. Okay, so it will be creating separate page list there, and there it will be having like the same work object ID. If I have 5 nominees included, okay, in the new table with the same work object ID, 5 records are to be inserted with the index value starting from 1 to 5. Okay, if you are trying to uh, optimize any of the property, that property will be included there. Okay, so clear, right? So for the single value properties, it will be directly including one column to the existing table, that is work table here. And if we're trying to optimize any other property, either page list property or page group or anything, it will be including as a separate table created. Since each and every record is to be holding only one value at once. So that is the reason three separate records will be created in this case, and will be having it will be given with one index. So this particular table we call it as an index table. Since it is given with each and everything with an indexing, this is called the index table for the existing page list, and the index table for the nominee page list will be there. And likewise for each and every page list or page group, one separate index table will be created automatically. Okay, so if you're trying to optimize for single value property, PRPC will be automatically creating this one. If you're trying to optimize for property which is in the page list, PRPC has to create one index table in the backend. Once we get this table created, we can able to use this particular data from the user interface, or we can able to make use of this data to be exposed to other third-party applications also. So meaning this particular class name should be known to me. So if this particular class name is known to me, I can able to make use of this in my user interface as well, right? As I told you, so this index table, every table in PRPC has to be linked with one class. Okay, so for the work table also we'll be having one class. That is the reason we can able to get all the instances directly created. And whatever the index table that PRPC is creating automatically, it has to be created with one class name as well. Okay, so if we just know the class name only, we can able to make use of this data. Okay, so if I run the particular wizard for optimizing, what PRPC will be doing, PRPC will be creating one class, one index class. It will be creating one index table, and it will be altering all the necessary information. And it will be creating one new database table. So that is the index table. It will be creating one index table. It will be creating one index class, and this index table is to be linked with one of the page list. So meaning there will be one mapping rule also created. Okay, so each and every page list has to be linked to the index table. So whenever we are creating the new work object ID, if the page list is having any of the information, okay, so in the blob it will be holding the data, right? So in this blob it will be just checking whether this particular property is optimized or not. It will be just checking for this for each and every property. If the particular property is optimized, it will be storing the particular instance in the new column as well. If it is not optimized, in this case last name is not optimized, so it will be putting it in the blob only, and it will be having blob will be having some information related to dependent page list as well as a nominee page list. So what PRPC has to do, it will be storing this data as it is in a blob, and parallelly it has to store the necessary information of this dependent page list in the corresponding table also. So it is having something like CHG2. It has to create all the necessary fields here, CHG2 for 3 times. If it is having 3 records, 1, 2, 3. So here again it will be starting with an indexing 1 only. So indexing meaning the particular record of the work object ID. So it starts with 2 again. If it is having 2 records, it will be having something like this. Okay. So every page list has to be linked with an index table. So using that wizard, index table will be created, index class will be created, and page list and this table mapping will be done. If I just open any of the existing index, okay, I have to tell one more thing here. So if I just insert any of the record here, if I'm trying to create any of the new work object ID, as I told you, it will be automatically updating this value as well as this value. So how PRPC will be knowing that this particular record has to be included only into this table? So if I'm just having 3 different index tables created, so one for the nominee list, one for the dependent list, one for the uh, uh, something like I have these 2 tables. So if I just have one new work object ID created, how PRPC will be knowing that this first index table is related to nominee details and the second index table is related to dependent details? How PRPC will be knowing that? So that because of the page list as well as the table mapping. So this is already known. So if any of the new work object is inserted here, it will be automatically executing this one extra query to update the data here as well. So meaning one declare index rule will be running. So declare index rule is one of the rule which will be running under the declarative network. So where it will be monitoring this index tables only. So when we're working with declare trigger, what it is doing, it is trying to monitor few tables as per the thing we are defining. But this declare index rule will be monitoring only these index tables. So whenever any of the page list is getting modified, okay, so the corresponding index table has to be updated. So that will be done because of the declare index automatically continuously monitored. Okay, so if any of the page list value is getting updated in the clipboard, then automatically the same value has to be updated in the index table also. So meaning for each and every table, one declare index rule will be automatically created. Okay, so if we just run the wizard, what are all the rules will be created? One index table will be created. Okay, one index class will be created. One page list and the table mapping will be created. And apart from this, one declare index rule will be created. Okay, so one declare index rule will be created for the dependent page list table, and one separate index rule will be created. Declare index rule will be created for the nominee page list, let us say. So if nominee page list value is getting updated in the block, then automatically declare index rule has to be executed, and it has to update the necessary information in the table connected to the declare index. Table connected to the nominee list only, not in the second one. Clear, right? So declare index rules are the rules that will be continuously monitoring one index table. So whenever the value is getting updated, so value has to be updated in the index table also because of this index rules, declare index rules. So we need not create any of the declare index rules manually. As part of this optimization, these rules will be declare index rules will be automatically created. So if we just want to see that existing index rule, so index rules will be under system admin, sysadmin, and there will be something called declare index. So if we just click here, we can able to see all the instances. So these are all the instances of the declare index rules. If we're trying to optimize anything in our project, then we'll be having it created here. So I'm trying to open the existing one. So this is the declare index rule. Here we can able to see one page list. So one page list is mapped to one index class. Okay. So based on this mapping will be done. So this index rule, declare index rule will be continuously monitored whenever this page list is getting updated. Okay, it will be monitored and it will be storing the corresponding information from this page list onto the class what we're trying to provide. So this will be done everything automatically. If at all, if you want to modify it also, we can able to do that. Okay, clear, right? So tomorrow we'll work on it practically. Any other doubts?